So the job of a lighting designer in terms of theater is to determine where all of the lighting instruments go in the space with the intent to design how the light lands on the actors. So it's a lot of angles and engineering and kind of playing with something that you can't really see as it travels, but just trying to create effects through lighting. My name is Benton Davis, and I work for the UA Theater Department as an electrician and a lighting designer. So for me, my attraction to lighting design specifically has come from the almost painterly aspect of it. So it really is playing with color and highlight and shadow and kind of sculpting the body through the application of light. So the way that it interacts with my painting and my drawing and my visual design has always been one of the things that attracts me to it. So first thing I do when I'm assigned to a show, very first thing is I'll read through the script. If it's a musical, I'll listen to the soundtrack, listen to any recordings that I can find. I personally like to avoid watching other productions when I'm working on a show, just so that my ideas are a little more wholly original, but I also need to have an understanding of the show. So there's kind of a general research on the show period that's just reading through the script 50 times, taking little notes of specifically moments of emotional change, big shifts in scenes, location, or just big moments with the characters. After I've gone through the script, I start assembling what's called a research morgue, which is just kind of a Pinterest board of images and color palettes that I put together. It's kind of what I use to communicate with the director what I want. And as soon as the overall aesthetic and idea is approved in the conversations with the director, then it's time to start making a plot. So the light plot shows us where all of the instruments and lights go in the space. And that's usually the longest part of the process in terms of the designer's work, is really making sure that I have all of the lights I need to create the effects that I want. Then, after that, we move into the hang, which is just putting up all of the lights wherever they go in the space. That typically takes about a week, especially for big shows like Spring Awakening, Legally Blonde, and our main stage space takes about a full week to load all of the instruments in, run cables to everything, get everything to communicate with our light board properly, and then comes focus. So each light is intended to hit a specific part of the stage, so we have to spend the next week aiming all of those lights. It's a lot of heights work, it's a lot of ladders, it's a lot of crawling around in really tight spaces, touching really hot instruments, and just making sure that all of those lights go exactly where we want them to. And as soon as everything's in place, as soon as everything's programmed and focused and aimed, then that is the time of year when I spend probably 4 or 5 hours a night after dark, after all of the rehearsals have done, in the theater by myself, just sitting at the board, programming the show cue by cue. When I did Spring Awakening last year, I think my final cue number was somewhere about 120, 150 cues, somewhere in that range, that all had to be programmed by hand, taking instruments and assigning them colors and brightnesses. So it's a pretty long process from those very first script reads to actually having lights